but that's where you grow. But reframing is actually seeing something that feels in the moment awful. So, and I always start with talking about my grandfather. So my grandfather, Banarsi Das Sadaf, was my dad's dad, and he was a freedom fighter against the British during the Revolution. So you guys know that like Britain had invaded India. So during the Revolution—
That guy right there, he's the Brit.
You, bad guy. So on the day that my dad was born, my grandfather was sitting in jail with Gandhi, right? So my entire childhood, I grew up with stories about my grandfather, who was like a survivor, tenacious, and he never gave up, no matter how hard it got. So my dad decides that, hey, I want to come to America to achieve the dream, right? So it's 1970, he marries my mom, and he comes with $8 in his pocket. And he's like, decides with my mom, if I can just come to America, if I work hard and I get educated, I'm gonna achieve and I can make it. So then when I'm born, a year later, I'm born into this legacy of courage, of justice, and of never giving up, no matter how hard it got, right? I get it from my grandfather, I get it from my father, and actually my mom. My mom is hard as nails, you'll see. But when I'm 10, my dad, yes, I was nice and chubsy. When I'm 10, my dad and I used to argue all the time about every little thing we could, right? And so one day I'm 10 and I'm sitting in the car with my dad, and my dad looks over at me in the car and he goes, you know what, Rashmi, you should be an attorney one day. Because you're smart, you're confident, and then you can argue with whoever you want. So I looked over at him and I was like, okay. And from that day forward, I was like, if I just follow my plan and I achieve my goals, that's how I'm gonna become successful. And that was how I defined myself. And for me, that meant I had to go to the best schools, get the best grades, win all the awards. When I was a senior in high school, my parents, so this is arguably the nicest neighborhood in Miami, it's called Gables Estates. And my parents, who I told you came from $8 in their pocket, to living in like the nicest neighborhood in Miami. They made it. And then in 1989, they lost everything. I was a senior in high school, March, and we lost this home to foreclosure. Do you guys know what foreclosure means? Yes? So we lost this home to the bank. They had to file bankruptcy. And when I'm 18, right? And I'm watching my parents carry whatever they could into a small home across the street from my high school. My dad used to cry and hope that we wouldn't see him. And it was really hard. I have two younger sisters, and my mom and dad did this really important thing, which was they always wanted us to know what was happening. They never hid anything from us, and they told us the truth. So no matter how hard it was, they wanted us to know actually what was happening and not like pretend that, hey, everything's fine. So we were watching my parents struggle. So I'm 18, I'm a senior in high school. Now I've heard about my grandfather struggling. I've now watched my parents struggle, and I decide, I know, I'm never gonna struggle. I just have to follow my plan. I'm gonna get the best grades, go to the best schools, and as long as I follow my plan, it's a straight trajectory. Does that sound familiar? The thing is I was really wrong, because that's just not how life works. And what I know through all of my 25, 30 years of like corporate world is that every single one of you will struggle in your lives. You've probably watched others in your family struggle. And all of us go through something. I actually believe that that's part of the human existence. It just looks differently for all of us. So for some of us, it might be legal, marital, medical, financial, mental health. Maybe you know somebody that's gone through any of these things. Or it looks like change, fear, uncertainty, stressed out, overwhelmed. We just all go through things all differently. And what's very common in the world right now is to say, keep going, rise above, push harder. And I actually think everyone's wrong, because when you just push harder, you're like missing the point. And I believe that when we go through these hard moments in our lives, we go through them because we're supposed to grow and learn from them. And you guys know discomfort is not easy, right? To get to where you're at as a collegiate athlete has not been easy for you. But in the discomfort is where you grow. So I go to Carolina, I'm a Tar Heel, and I graduated highest honor, top of my class, all the things. I told you I went to Wall Street, and then I went to Columbia Law School and also graduated top of my class. And then I marry a firefighter. And we have these 2 incredible, yummy kids, right? But can I tell you guys, when I took this picture, I don't remember taking it. Because when Maya was this little, all I was doing was hustling and working. I had my own little law practice by this point, and I was working my tail off. I would go to networking events, lunches, dinners. I would try to sell my services at the gym. Any place I could, I was working and trying to make ends meet. And yes, I was a major breadwinner, so there was like a lot of pressure. And I can't even believe I don't remember when the switch was taken, right? I just forgot to be present in the moments because I was stuck in my own head. What I say now is I was imprisoned in my own thoughts. And the thing, we grow up with this societal belief of assumptions of who we have to be loved, who we have to be enough. So when the kids were 2 and 3, I get a chance to meet a real estate developer. Now this is where I'm not gonna go through a lot of details. What I'll tell you is, like I said, I was really stressed out. And at the time, this is 2007, you guys were like babies, or you were not even born yet. What year were you born? Oh, Jesus. Okay, so just to give you guys some context, do you guys understand what real estate means? Sort of. So real estate is buying and selling property. So when your parents bought your house or they sell a house, that's called real estate. The industry is called real estate. So I was a lawyer in that industry. I had my own little practice. And because I was hustling, trying to get like you to hire me and you to hire me, I get an opportunity to meet a developer who had like thousands of possible opportunities for me. So in my mind, I was like, oh, if I can get that one developer to hire me, then I don't have to go chasing around after all these other people and I can be home with my kids more. Does that make sense? Yeah. So because I was so stuck in like making enough money and what house I lived in and what car I drove, right? It's very easy to get caught up in that. Miami is terrible for this. I needed to keep up with where I was already at. So I get this chance to meet a client, and without asking him questions, I start working with him. He was doing these really creative transactions. So for both of you that will understand, he was giving buyer incentives to buyers that were buying condos. And like in my gut, something didn't feel right. But I was like, well, I know everyone else is doing it, it must be fine. So I am surrounded by attorneys, okay? My parents are attorneys, my friends are attorneys, my mentors are attorneys. I could have gone to any number of people to ask for help, but I didn't ask for help. Because I think I had convinced myself that I have to know it all. And asking for help feels like weakness, right? So vulnerability didn't seem like a strong thing back then. Now I live in vulnerability. But then I didn't want to ask for help because I didn't want people to know that I didn't know or that I didn't know any better. So 2 months after I met the developer, this client, it was Christmas Eve, and my whole family flew in from everywhere. I have a very big Indian family, so they're like from DC and Philadelphia and Washington and Houston and everywhere, okay? Cousins, aunties, uncles. On Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock, I go into the kids' bedrooms to make them sleep. So Maya was in her crib. Sorry, this is actually how I say it. So I always say Maya was in her crib, Kyler was in his toddler bed, and I was sitting on the glider, making them sleep. And I used to always sing to them. And in the middle of singing to them this song, I looked down at a BlackBerry. I don't even know if any of you do you guys know what BlackBerries are? Oh God, okay, this is really how old this is. I looked down at my BlackBerry and there was an email that came in. And the email did not feel right to me. Like I read it, something didn't feel right. There was an attachment to the email, but I don't open the email and I just forwarded my email to somebody who worked for me. Now you might say, well, if it didn't feel right, why'd you forward it? I have a house full of relatives, it's almost Christmas morning, the kids are not yet sleeping, and none of my presents are wrapped. Right, we just forward things all the time, thinking it's just this, doesn't matter, it's just this one time. In 2011, now some of you guys know the story, some of you don't. But in 2011, 2 FBI agents showed up at my office. They showed their badge and asked to interview me. Yeah, so some of you guys have like a deer in headlights look. It is freaking scary to have the FBI come to your office. And I let them in my office. I used to have this circular table, and I let them in my office, and they grilled me for 4 hours. Now, who thinks I should have had an attorney there with me? Yeah, do you think I had an attorney with me? Because I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. This is 4 years later. Like, I've already been audited, everything has been cleared by it's called an underwriter. So I let them in, and I talked to them, and I'm answering their questions. Yes, no, yes, no. They were showing me documents and pictures and emails and saying, did you ever see this? Did you ever meet this person? Did you ever read this email? And I didn't actually remember, but I was saying I did remember. And then I'll skip over like a very long story and make it short. But essentially, in April of 2014, I was indicted for bank fraud. And I tried everything not to get indicted. The kids were 7 and 8. And I thought my life was over. Right? Can you imagine being the perfect little Indian girl and all of a sudden I'm being indicted? So I was so sure that I could prove that I was innocent that every day I would take the kids to school, and I had printed out hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. That was through the discovery. And so I would take them to school, and I'd go through all these documents every single day. This is all I did for 4 months, because this was my whole life, guys. This was literally everything I had worked so hard for. And all I could think about is, I'm disgracing my parents and my kids and my community. And no one's gonna love me. My parents decided we were gonna tell our community, our Indian community. So my mom and dad are leaders in our community. I have all these aunties and uncles. So we called our closest 50 aunties and uncles to the house. And it was really important that we told them, to me. I didn't want them to hear about it or gossip about it. But I was also 100% sure that once they heard, they would shun my parents and basically want nothing to do with it. Because remember, I absolutely believe that they only love me. And in the Indian culture, doing all the right things is part of the culture. I mean, it's not just the Indian culture, right? Any high achieving, all of us kind of get stuck in this. So I remember Dad was standing at the corner, and I was sitting on a couch. My mom was here, and one of my uncles was here from the community. And Dad told them that I had just been indicted. And my dad's crying. I'm crying. And my mom, she doesn't cry, she's hard as nails. And this uncle here, who's sitting next to me, says to me, Beti, which in Hindi means daughter, one day you'll realize that this is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And when we're going through stuff in our lives, isn't it easy to say, why me? Why does this have to happen? It can be with the loss of a game. It can be with, loss of a relationship. It can be with anything. It's so easy to think, why is this happening to me? And then I was like, when my uncle said this to me, he said, it's not happening to you. It's actually happening for you, you just can't see it yet. And I had to figure, I'm in my attorney's office, and I had to figure out how to reframe all of this. So this is the R in RISE. What do you guys think when you think of reframe? There's no right or wrong answer. Maya. Maggie. Yeah. Exactly. And it's not toxic positivity. It's turning the negative into a positive and just having the faith to know, I don't know what's gonna come of this, but I'm just gonna trust that something good will come of it. And it's hard, and I'm not trying to get into faith or spirituality, but reframing is actually seeing something that feels in the moment awful and unimaginable and recognizing it could be something better for you, you just can't see it yet. So ultimately, when I'm in this meeting with my attorney, he says to me, Rashmi, if you go to trial, I'm telling you right now, you're gonna lose. And you're looking at 20 years in federal prison. You're gonna miss your kid's whole life. You're gonna miss high school graduation, college graduation, marriage, you're gonna miss all of it. And the thing is you knew something. Your name is on every document. And you can't deny that you knew something. And what he did was he said to me, not doing something is still doing something wrong. And what happened in my case was, when I went through all those documents, I found that my client had been doing a bunch of things outside of my office, outside of the case, that I didn't know about. But I knew this one thing, which was this creative transaction that he was doing. But it didn't matter that I didn't know all these other things. One of the things I was indicted for was conspiracy. And the conspiracy count says that if I knew even one thing, there could be 500 million other facts. None of that matters, because I knew this one thing. So the fact that I didn't know that all this other stuff was happening, it didn't matter. And that one thing could land me in prison for 20 years. So I sat there in that office and decided I was going to plead guilty. And for somebody like me, who was like the overachiever and the best at everything, to recognize that I'm going to be a felon for the rest of my life was debilitating. And I didn't know how I was going to come back from it. I didn't know who would love me after this. I didn't know who my friends would be. I didn't know how my kids would respond, right? It was awful. But who can guess who this is? Ready? I promise you guys know who this is. Maya, you're not allowed to guess. He was in foster care in Georgia. At the age of 16, he was kicked out of his house for selling drugs. Oh God, what did I just do? Okay. At the age of 3, he could recite all of Jose Marti's poems by heart. In 2024, he bought naming rights to a college football stadium. He co-founded the tuition-free SLAM charter school. After Hurricane Maria, he quietly sent his own jet to ferry Puerto Rican cancer patients for chemo. I know one of you guys know who this is. What'd you say?
Said Joe Burrow.
No. You're not allowed to guess. You want a hint? You want a hint? This is gonna give it away. He's Mr. 305.
A Pitbull.
So, how many of you knew this about Pitbull? Did you guys know?
No way.
Look at Maya.
He's coming to Hartford next September.
Is he? So Pitbull and I do know each other. I've been the commencement speaker at his school. Here's the thing, none of you guys knew his story, did you? We know him as this global entrepreneur, philanthropist, businessman. And maybe none of you want to be global artists like him, but we want to inspire the world like he does. And the guy came literally from the pits. Like, no pun intended, but yes. He came from nothing, guys. He was kicked out of his house, he was selling drugs, he was raised in the projects, and you know what he tells me? Failure is just an opportunity to try again. When you go through hard times, you gotta reframe it and figure out what to do next. He is literally the epitome of reframing life. When you go through the discomfort, in the middle of the moment and change, it feels really, really impossible and unimaginable. But that's where you grow. And I believe that that's the entire purpose of life.